Well, today I'm beyond honored to gift you with this special person who has been in my life for quite some time, came into my life during just before COVID, and so grateful that he did because it actually, through the courses that I was taking with Doug through COVID, I actually was able to survive in ways I don't think I would have otherwise. So, a little bit about this wonderful person and this amazing human being. Doug O'Brien. He is the author of The User Guide to Sleight of Mouth, a certified trainer of hypnosis, certified trainer of havening techniques, and a master trainer of NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, based in New York. As a hypnotherapist, Doug helped found the Department of Integrative Medicine at New York's Columbia Presbyterian Hospital in the 1990s, where he provided pre-surgical hypnosis to cardiac patients. As a seminar leader, he has traveled the world teaching neo-Ericksonian hypnosis, sleight of mouth, the havening techniques, and storytelling. Doug is an author of the forthcoming The User's Guide to Storytelling. Doug O'Brien, author of The User's Guide to Sleight of Mouth, is definitely one not to be missed during this podcast. I would highly recommend anyone and everyone to be in touch, not only personally with him, but professionally. So, here are a huge amount of testaments to you, Doug, but I'm just going to read a few. And there are only a handful of people in the country whom I have personally trained and am totally confident in recommending Doug O'Brien. And he is one of the few. Anthony Robbins, author of Unlimited Power and Awaken the Giant Within. I heartily and unequivocally recommend Doug O'Brien as a practitioner of hypnotherapy and guided imagery. His skills and knowledge in this area are the first rate. Dr. Oz, MD. Wow. What is left to say except welcome? And I am so honored, actually so privileged. And I have to say, as a testament to not just the courses I've done with you, but I was going through massive, major dental surgery. And I had a private session, a hypnotherapy session with you. I used it. I even used it in the endodontist's office, and it got me through 4 hours of major surgery without anesthetic and without any pain. So thank you so much, Doug, and welcome to Transformative Conversations, because this is all about transformation.
Great. So good to be here and so glad that worked out well.
Oh,
Good
yeah.
Lord, it's a hard thing. 4 hours.
It was 4 hours, but it worked, and it worked because of you. So thank you so much again for that. And I've told so many people about it. So one of the hardest things for a lot of people is dentists, right? So thank you. So, Doug, today I just want to go on a little journey with you. And that's, something sort of, the pockets of through time, right? Stopping at various places along the way. So what motivated you to work in the field of NLP and hypnosis?
Oh, golly. Start off asking me hard questions there, Collie. Why don't you? That's fine. I could spend the rest of the interview talking about that.
Well,
but let me
please do.
I needed it. I wasn't doing it for fun. I was doing it because I needed it for myself. I needed healing. I needed expansion of my awareness and about what the world has to offer. Literally, I was a musician in New York. I was playing in very small clubs for the most part, doing rock and roll bands, punk rock bands and new wave bands and stuff like that. Playing places that sound very impressive, like CBGB's and, Studio 54. But, we were making $100 for the band, so.
For the band.
so that covered most of our cab ride back to the house where we, kept our equipment. But, it was not a lavish lifestyle, let's just say. So I was... I was going through stuff. Not just professionally as a musician, but, emotionally and mentally as a human being. And I needed help. So I got it from Tony Robbins originally. The Fire Walk, the NLP route was Tony Robbins. He was a trainer of NLP at the time. and used his firewalk experiences to introduction to what NLP could do. So I went to it because my girlfriend, frankly, at the time, dragged me to it. I had actually no interest whatsoever, but
Oh,
she
leave it to
insisted.
those girlfriends.
It was, it was one of those things back in those days. It was the kind of marketing they did was kind of like the forum, or EST, which is where if you went, then you were enrolled into getting everybody else that you knew, in your life to enroll for the next seminar or whatever. That's the way Tony was doing it back then. So she just did what she was supposed to do, and which was enroll everybody she knew, and I was chief among them at that time. But I was very glad she did. It was fantastic. It was just an amazing workshop and taught me a lot about what was possible with human beings and the mind, the mind-body integration. And, I haven't looked back since. I've just done more and more and more and more. I'm still a student.
Oh, and I'm so glad that you haven't stopped and that you continue to share with us your brilliance and expertise. Can you elaborate a little bit on your musical background? Because I know it, but our listeners
Mhm.
don't. And I think it's just amazing.
Oh, well, you are incredibly flattering, and I appreciate it. I was classical pianist, and I started playing music because I loved the Beatles and other forms of rock, but I sucked at guitar, and so I had a very good piano teacher, and I took off with that, and so I went to music school and became a classical pianist, and spent a few extra years getting extra good at it, and finally played recital at Carnegie Hall in 1980. And then 6 months later or 8 months later, I was back in New York City, but playing in a punk rock band called Ultraviolence on the Lower East Side. And so it was,
That's a great name.
yes, yes. And so it was quite quite a departure from the classical world, but still, it was music. And so I focused on that. That's what I did. I played music. I did whatever I could to get money, so I'd play in clubs, I'd play in restaurants, I'd play in, bar mitzvahs and weddings. I would play churches. I was a church organist as well. And, I did whatever I needed to do to make money and taught. Most of my actual income came from regular income, at least came from teaching piano. But anybody who's ever been in that business can tell you it's not easy to do all that running around and slogging to get some money.
No.
And especially as a piano player. If you're a violinist, maybe it's okay, but as a piano player,
but as a piano player, right? Yeah. But the thing that I find so interesting about your dedication to anything that you have set out to do is you always used in our courses and classes the word practice.
Yeah. Well, that's what it takes, isn't it?
That's what it takes. Yeah. Because no one gets good at anything without it, right? We just don't.
That's really true. That's one of the reasons I do teach the way that I do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've influenced by people who, I won't mention any names, but say that they are using NLP to teach NLP, and they install it into your unconscious mind, and it's like, well, that's nice. Thank you very much. But, I've always been that the proof is in the pudding.
Exactly.
Not how well I teach the piano, it's how well that the student plays the piano when I'm finished teaching them, so that's what we want to see, is the student actually comes away with proficiency and skill.
Exactly. And so what fascinates you about NLP and hypnosis?
What fascinates about me?
Mm-hmm.
That it works, that it's, if you look up NLP in Wikipedia,
mm-hmm.
It's got not good press, if you will. Whoever has it out for NLP in the Wikipedia world, make sure that no matter how many times I've changed it or other people have changed it, because it's supposed to be open, right? Open source. It always gets back to saying NLP is a pseudoscience. And it's not. I mean, it is. I don't know what it is, but it is. It works. It works. We've done lots of work with it over the years. I've seen it do miracles with people, practically speaking, from removing phobias and allergies symptoms, and going through dental surgery without pain.
Right.
And it does amazing things. We've worked with there was a project called the Research and Recognition Project that was done with veterans who all had PTSD, either flashbacks or nightmares or both, and got like a 95% success rate. In other words,
wow,
they weren't just like okay after that. They were fine after that. They had no more symptoms. They had no more flashbacks. They had no more, nightmares waking them up at night. They were okay.
Amazing.
And yeah. And 95% rate. This is study that was done with, PhD people crossing their T's and dotting their I's, making sure everything was just exactly right. This is proven. It's true. We did three versions of this test. So NLP works. And I want people to know that. I want people to appreciate that and be able to tap into that, because so much of it is done these days. People want a pill, to
Quick fix.
Yeah, exactly. And so you see these like NLP trainings where they say, I'll teach you everything you need to know about NLP in 5 days, or, whatever. And it's just not true.
No, but it isn't.
When it is done properly, it works. And NLP is a derivative, much of it at least as well, is a derivative of Ericksonian hypnosis.
Mm-hmm.
Not all of it, but a great deal of it was sort of derived and codified from Ericksonian hypnosis. So I'm absolutely fascinated with that.
Yeah, and it's proof in the pudding, because your fascination with it is what you bring out in classes and courses and private sessions. And again, I can attest to all of it, right? So it works. It definitely works. I've been involved in NLP since, my goodness, we're looking at 1984. So yeah, so definitely it works, and it's just something that through your courses and classes, and I've been able to add on, but more integrally, because you are that. Yeah. So I was going to ask you, what have been some of your most powerful experiences during the journey of NLP and hypnosis that has been a transformation in your own life and continued to be useful?
Well, it is kind of like anything. If you were to take up golf, just as an example, you would probably get out there and you'd probably hit something like 200 on 18 holes, if you were lucky. But, learn a lot that first time. And maybe by the second or third game, you'd score like 150. And then after maybe if you continued practicing and playing, after a month, maybe you'd get down to 100. Right. So you could improve rapidly at the beginning.
Right.
But, if you want to get down from, 100 to 90, it's going to take a good deal more effort. If you want to get down from 90 to 85, it's going to take, a good deal more effort and focus and, hard work. If you want to get down to 80, it's like, yeah, baby, now you're talking. Now you got to take some, private lessons,
right.
Practice every day and make sure, so it's kind of like that. Much of my biggest change for myself personally came early on, with those early firewalks with Tony Robbins in 1985, going again, dating myself, not quite as far back as you, but 85 is when we're really close. Yeah. So it was quite remarkable, quite life-changing, really life-saving in many ways, because I was having some challenges back then.
Mm-hmm. And so it really did, you would consider that to be a major transformation?
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Yeah. And so what is motivating you to continue expanding in the field more and more? Because you are. So what is that motivation?
Well, again, the fact is that it works. And so I don't just teach it, I work with people. I'm a coach.
Right.
So I'm always looking at ways of how can I make this even better for people and for the people that are paying me to help them. How can I make it as easy as possible for them? Because they're not learning the techniques, right? I'm not teaching techniques. I'm coaching them through an issue, a problem that they have, and hopefully it's a transformational one. So I'm always looking for the next greatest, best, easiest thing, which is how I discovered havening back in 2013. Havening techniques.
Right.
I didn't think I needed anything more. I was doing just fine with havening, with hypnosis and NLP. But havening works, again.
How exciting is that to add on? So can you explain a little bit to our listeners about havening? Because we haven't talked about that yet.
No. Yeah, the havening techniques are just quite remarkable. as you mentioned, I wrote the book, and I'm going to come back to Havening in a moment. I'm going to
Yeah, go where you need to.
Circle around here. But in answering your first question about what still fascinates me about NLP, the work I'm doing right now with Sleight of Mouth is really interesting to me. Robert Dilts, who's the creator of Sleight of Mouth, which is a persuasion skill from the world of NLP.
Right.
Robert Dilts is one of the major contributors and developers of NLP. Robert Dilts wrote a new book called Sleight of Mouth 2. And I took his course, and now I'm teaching one of my 4-month courses, deep dive cohort kind of coaches where we work together every week, my class and I. But I'm deepening my understanding of what Sleight of Mouth is and other ways of using it. And I feel like I'm using these students for my own, edification. Just they're getting a lot out of it too. But I feel like this is like I'm learning so much about this from teaching the class. I just absolutely love it. I wouldn't do it, I don't think, if I didn't love it. I mean, it's
no
better money than playing punk rock on the Lower East Side, but it's
but it's not millionaire status, right?
Right. But I do love it. And when somebody told me about the Havening techniques, I had been told about tapping and tried to use tapping throughout the 90s, and I never had very good success with it. In fact, to say I had limited success for it is being generous to my tapping experience. So when somebody told me about the Havening techniques, I thought, oh yeah, it's just another one of those hands-on
quick fix.
Yeah. But quick fix in theory, but not, I didn't see any actual fix from it personally. But then when I first saw Havening actually demonstrated with a woman who had, survived the attacks on 9/11, she was actually in the World Trade Center.
Wow.
When the plane hit. So she was severely traumatized, as many people were just hearing about it, but she is, in the building. So when I saw the demonstration with her, and her, SUDS, her SUD, or subjective unit of distress, started out at a 10, just like the guy said, so tell me about what happened on 9/11. And she went, boom, fully associated, back in the building. Subjective unit of distress is, if it had gone to 11, she would have gone to 11, it was just through the roof.
Wow.
Literally 10, 12 minutes later, it was at a 0. And she was fine. Yeah.
Oh my word. So
I haven't told you the story before?
No. Where have I been? I'm probably missing in those classes that I've been missing,
Maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's really true. And what was interesting to me from an NLP perspective is when she started off at the SUDS was at a 10. He said, what happened at 9/11? And we don't need to know the content, so he didn't get a whole story from her. She just knew that she was totally activated, right? She was at a 10. So he immediately he said, clear your mind and start doing the Havening techniques, and let's go walking on the beach. So you start doing the distractions and the guided imagery sort of thing that happens with the Havening techniques. But when she first described it, she was like, well, I'm standing at the ATM and I'm seeing this thing and suddenly boom, so she's talking in the first person, she's in the building. But then after 10 minutes later and she's down to a 0, he says, okay, so now tell me what happened on 9/11. And she sits back in her chair and she points over there and she says, well, I remember I was at an ATM, right? So she's speaking in the past tense.
Past tense. Wow.
She's pointing over there as if it's a dissociated picture, right? She's leaning back. She's obviously not distressed at all. She's just, comfortable reminiscing about, something that happened 10 years ago. It was just extraordinary to see this change. She wasn't faking it. She wasn't trying to be nice to the guy who did the demo. She was like, well, I remember I was in an ATM, just pointing over there, and suddenly, so she's totally dissociated. It's just amazing. So it was that moment I said, okay, I need to learn this stuff. Whatever this is, I need to.
No doubt. And so you did, and you do, and you use it, and you teach it.
Well, I was in a fortunate position. Like I said, I still do NLP and hypnosis. I'm not just a teacher of it. I do it. So I had clients, and every time I had a client come in and say, by the way, I have this new technique I just learned. Would you like to try it? So I was able to get through my case studies pretty quickly, working with people. And I became a trainer basically within a year of it.
Wow.
So it was a fast track situation. But yeah,
Well,
it's been great.
it's obviously something when it connects somatically like that, and that you get the shift, in the visceral, then right? That it's definitely working, as you say, with that woman. I mean, that's just mind boggling how amazing. I mean, how grateful she must have been, right? Because she's gone on and able to live her life a little bit more comfortable for sure.
Well, a whole lot more comfortable.
A
And as a
whole
matter
lot.
to tell her story a little bit now, is that she has gone on to become a havening
Oh,
trainer.
wow. Oh, goosebumps.
I know.
Goosebumps.
She
That is
became a havening practitioner within a couple of years after that experience. And then she went on to become a havening trainer of her own on her own level. So she's amazing.
no doubt. Well, so the combination of those are just, it's like, it's like a nice little recipe, right?
Yeah.
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 And then you get to, when you work with people, you get to go where you need to go with them, and you've got all those tools
And
to
that is the
use.
other thing about it is, nobody, or very rarely do people come to me and say, I want hypnosis, or I want
Right.
NLP, or I want havening. They come to me and say, like, I've got this problem. Can you help me? Whatever said problem is, it's like, yeah, I can. I think I can. Like, we'll give it our best shot. But I've got
Mm-hmm.
all these different things, and I don't really know until we've sat down and started talking with each other which one of those tools I'm going to use. It's not, a recipe book, as you say. It's I don't know. It's tailored to the person. It's like, I'm not going to give you the number 7 on the special list. I'm going to give you whatever it is you want. We'll make it for you from scratch.
Well,
With the rest.
yeah. And the beauty of havening, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you can use it on yourself.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah.
What's one of the great things about havening is,
Right.
and by the way, we didn't really know that. We sort of knew it. We kind of knew it. We knew it, I guess, but didn't know it for sure until COVID. Because always prior to COVID, 99% of the time, havening was done with a practitioner applying the touch to the client. So I would be stroking your arms, right, with the
Right.
havening touch sort of thing. We discovered, without question, over COVID, over Zoom, right?
Right. Over Zoom, right? Yeah.
Right. It can be done with me saying, okay, now stroke your arms like this, and I just demonstrate how to do it. And then you do it on your own arms, and you get the same delta wave production. I don't think perhaps it's quite as great as in person, but it works.
Right.
And that also means that without us being on Zoom, when we sign off afterwards, you still have your hands present, and you can still stroke your arms, and you can still do the techniques for yourself. And wherever you go, there they are. You got your healing tools with you.
Wow. Fascinating. It really is. I was going to ask you, with regards to, because it's all about transformation with this woman, obviously that was a huge transformation for her.
Mm.
And so NLP and hypnosis and havening, it's all about transformation, isn't it? Really?
It really is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's another nice thing about it as well, is that it's not just about going to the doctor or whatever to get the toenail fixed or whatever. It's not just about getting something fixed that's broken.
Mm-hmm.
It's about, growing and evolving and finding your best self and creating that as, the blossoming flower of a human that you are, to make that an evolutionary process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I was going to take you back a bit here to hypnosis, to Milton Erickson. Can you elaborate on your relationship with
Milton?
with Milton and and your journey? Yeah.
I sat on the bench near where his ashes were spread on Piatasqua Peak in where is that? Arizona, someplace. So I might have breathed in a little bit of Erickson, but I don't have much of a relationship. I also did sit in his chair at his office, so maybe there's stuff there. Yeah, I met his wife.
Right.
He died before I even ever heard his name consciously. Right. He died in 1980, and I'd never even heard of NLP until 85. So I never met Milton. But I did go to his house once but around 1990. His wife was still living, and she was very nice. She, showed me in, gave me a little tour. I got to know his daughter, Betty Alice Erickson, pretty well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was really great.
Do
She
tell.
came and did a workshop in New York City,
Okay.
and I was able to attend to that, and we just got to talking, and yeah, it was neat because I was doing a newsletter at the time. I still do a newsletter, NLP, Ericksonian Hypnosis newsletter, but she wanted to have her father's, she's called them daddies, Milton's rules of life published. These were not like rules of how to do Ericksonian hypnosis or anything like that. It's just rules of life. He had 10 rules of life that Betty Alice and her mother, Elizabeth, had made sure that they got down on paper and codified. So she wanted to have them published. So I published them in my newsletter.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So when she died, the Jeffrey Zeig, who's the president of the Erickson Foundation in Phoenix, Arizona,
Right.
called me and said, could I publish them in our publication as a tribute to Betty Alice? And of course I said, no, not at all. Are you kidding? No, of course I said yes.
I was going to go, what? So
Mine, just
where can one actually obtain and read
those?
that?
Oh,
Mhm.
golly. You know what? That's a really good question. I should dust them off again. They're in one of my websites, probably ericksonian.info.
Okay.
I guess they're in there, ericksonian.info. If you went into that website, you could probably find them. It's possible they're in the blog section of ericksonian.com.
Okay.
Both of those Ericksonian websites are mine, but they're there. But I should probably get them out again, but maybe publish them a second time.
Good idea.
Yeah. Thank you for
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be a great idea because I know listeners will be interested for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I am.
Nice.
I'm interested. So
Go.
for sure. Yeah. I was going to, with regards to your NLP and hypnosis experiences, would you share maybe one of your most powerful for you experiences? No names mentioned, of course, but something that, you have worked with a client and they've just had wow moments.
Yeah. There are so many.
So many, I know, but
let me just say this. One of the things I love about Ericksonian hypnosis is, and I call neo-Erickson hypnosis, which, by the way, I call it neo-Ericksonian hypnosis because I never met Milton, as I mentioned, and he was dead long before I'd even heard his name. So I'd learned Ericksonian hypnosis not from him, but from books and from videos and from some of his students like Stephen Gilligan and Bill O'Hanlon and various other of his students that would, deign to teach me. But what I love about Ericksonian hypnosis is that it is personable. I mean, it's to the person. It's tailored to the person.
right.
So in other words, it's kind of like if you go to a traditional hypnotist, there's a pejorative kind of nickname that some people call it, like they call it scriptnosis.
Oh,
There's a script for this thing. So if you come to a hypnotist and you want to quit smoking, they say, okay, sure. And they'll do a standard way of closing, getting you into trance, maybe doing the watch back and forth or doing the hypno disc thing to get deeper, 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 down, 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 deeper, kind of thing that people do. And then they would open their book to the page, how to get a person to quit smoking. And they'd read this script of, now you will become a non-smoker. You hate smoking. Smoking is terrible. And they just got to read the script. And be the same thing for anybody else who came in for that same issue. They'd read the same script for the same person, do the same, induction to get them into trance. Everything's the same. It's cookie cutter approach. And because hypnosis works and people are malleable and willing to do these sorts of things, it is successful a lot of the times. But Erickson recognized that everyone is as individual as their own thumbprint. So he would never do the same advice. He would say, oh, who is this person in front of me today? And how can I tailor things to them so they will choose on their own to quit smoking because it's the right thing for them, and
Right.
they just spontaneously quit, the next day sometimes, it's just like, wow, I don't need that. They just decide for themselves. And that way it's just much more powerful, I think, long lasting. There's also, it's integral to the human being that's there. I'm not making you do something that you wouldn't do otherwise. You're making that choice. You're finding the right integrated way of doing it for you. So I think that's one of the reasons I love it so much. I guess one of my personal transformations, if you will, was when I was working at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital doing the pre-surgical hypnosis. I was also running marathons.
Oh,
and there was a time which not simultaneously,
not in surgery at the same time you're running marathons. Oh, come on, Doug. I know you're talented.
But one day when I was training for the marathon, I got a hernia. I'll just leave out the ugly details. But just suffice it to say, I needed to get an operation.
Oh.
And I had a doctor that said, well, you can have an operation now, or you can have an operation later. I said, oh, well, thank you for all those great choices that I can make. So I decided as long as I had to have an operation, I might as well make it interesting. So I found a surgeon who was willing to do it without any anesthesia, just using my own hypnosis. So I made a tape for myself.
Oh.
It was literally a tape back in those days, as the 90s. So it was a tape on a tape recorder that, had automatic reverse thing. So it was recorded on both sides of the tape. And so, I had this hernia operation where I had no anesthesia. And also very interesting about that operation, of course, is that because there's no anesthesia, as soon as it's over, I can say, okay, thank you very much. And got off the table and took a taxi back home. Not that was, it's still painful, trust me, to get off the table. I didn't just hop off.
Oh, but you didn't go back running through Central Park?
Not that day, no.
Oh.
Just jog home. Yeah, no. But seriously, what was interesting about it was I had often said to people during my years working at the hospital that the patient in surgery would have minimal bleeding. They would just have enough bleeding just to keep the wound clean, but they would stop the bleeding. And so I had that on my tape too, for myself. And one of the things that the surgeon commented on afterwards, because she was amazed, and the people that were helping, the nurses and the people that were helping were just flabbergasted that this surgery was taking place without any anesthesia. But also there was such little blood. Usually, she said, there's like 4 of these mats that they've got to swap out because there's so much bleeding. But I just used the one that was there to start with, and even it was barely touched,
Oh, my word.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I mean, I can attest because of, the tape, that I had during my surgery and I listened to continually. I mean, but it wasn't anything like, the bleeding that you would have gone through. Wow. She must have been blown away.
Yes, she was. Yeah. So that was quite an impressive experience for her and for me too, of course.
Well, yeah, personally, because who better to attempt it on, right, than oneself? I mean, how brave thou art.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God.
Money where your mouth is.
Wow. But you worked with, like the cardiac patients as well, right? And this is no small feat. We're working with the heart, without the heart.
They were under anesthesia.
Right, of course. But there's still, the whole thing about having surgery.
We did have good results. It was interesting. This whole thing, the reason we were there, because I'm not a doctor, I'm a musician, I'm a lay hypnotist at best, but the reason I got in and other people who got into the hospital to work with patients prior to surgery is that Dr. Oz was interested in alternative medicines or, treatments that could be then brought into a hospital setting. Mm-hmm. That's why we called it complementary medicine. And later it was integrative medicine. But at first it was complementary medicine, integrative medicine. So it'd be integrated. It's not alternative to, but integrated in with, surgical techniques, medicine, etc. So many things were there at the beginning. There was therapeutic touch at the beginning. There was qigong. There was yoga. There was massage. There was all a bunch of things that were available. But by the time all the dust had settled, by the time 6 years later, when all the experiments were done, the only two things left to choose from were were massage and hypnosis, because
Really?
we got real measurable results from those things.
So how did Dr. Oz find you?
I was just very lucky that one of my students in my hypnosis class was a nurse,
Oh,
and she had this program coming up. So she said, you should go check this out. So I made a few phone calls and went and checked it out. It was
fascinating.
Yeah. I think it was hard to find people to be willing to, do all that we needed to do for free, basically.
Right.
So,
But what an experience, really.
Yeah, pretty
I mean, it's profound.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm like blown away. I think that's just fantastic. And so do they still continue that now, or?
You know what? I don't know. I moved away in
Okay.
2000. I moved up to Vermont for a couple of years. And I
Right.
know the program did not continue as it had been, but I believe they've, woven some things back into the hospital. I don't know that but I'm pretty sure that they have sources of integrative NLP or hypnosis, not NLP, hypnosis in the hospital. Pretty sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
So now moving forward for you, what are you most, motivated and curious to discover related to your ongoing journey with NLP and hypnosis and havening? What do you?
Well, again, the thing that I love about havening and the fact that your hands are with you wherever you go, and hypnosis is really not so much about some great hypnotist putting you into trance and making you do things because he's so great or she's so great, but it's about how you do it for yourself, how you connect with your own conscious and unconscious integration. So you are connecting with yourself and you are evolving, and we call it kind of generative hypnosis or a generative NLP, that you're creating a new life for yourself in the vision that you have for yourself.
Oh, okay.
I'm so fascinated by Jung and Carl Jung's Jungian psychology, that the idea there is not just to not be broken,
right,
but to sort of become individualized, so you become the person that you were meant to be on the planet. Become that person. You slough off all the shackles that have kept you back from evolving and being who you're supposed to be, whether they're societal norms or expectations from your parents or whatever. But just let that stuff go and discover who you are really.
And that's just the whole thing about, I would have to say, for me, about this new age, in some ways, there's always this thing about having to fix yourself, right? Rather than discover the more of who you really are. And I don't believe there's anything to fix. I think it's exactly what you said. It's about, the shackles and all the patterns and all that. And so then, blossoming where you're planted, right? There's that quote, blossom where you're planted. But a lot of people can't blossom because they don't even know where they've been planted. That's the thing.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. I think there are things that need to get fixed. There are shit that needed to be in my life.
Well, yes, but you weren't, when I think about fixing, I think about, getting out. For example, my son-in-law is a carpenter, framer, builder. And, I think about when he does renovations, yes, those things need to be fixed because the doorknobs have fallen off or whatever. So with regards to a person, when I think about having to fix them, I have a little hesitancy about using that word. Yeah. Because I personally like to think no one's really seriously broken and can't be put back together again, right? Given the right opportunities, the right tools, the right, technicians, the right facilitators, the right people such as yourself, right?
Yeah.
Gather all those pieces.
There's a beautiful thing in I think it's Japan, where when they fix something, You
Mm.
know, they've, you know, like a vase or a pot or something like that. They'll fix it with gold, you know, so
Oh,
they'll put this, so you now have this crack, but it's no longer a crack. It's now this sort of little river of gold that goes through this pot.
oh,
So that
wow.
the beauty is enhanced because of the flaw.
Right, right. Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Have to look that one up for sure. Maybe share that with the listeners as well on the little
That's
promotional piece, you know. Who doesn't like a little bit of gold and sparkle in their life, right? Exactly. So, oh my goodness. So, how are you going to surpass your expectations?
well, you know, I was reading an article today, going back to my golf metaphor. There's a guy who won, just for whoever's listening to this recording some days, years hence. This is 2024, May 20th, I believe, was the date that this person won a golf tournament, the PGA Championship. This is his first major championship win. He's been a consistently excellent golfer, but has never won a major championship until yesterday.
Wow.
Yeah, but he's been a slogger. He's been like in the top 10 30 times in a row for the past few years. You know, he's just been, you know, he
He's
just
been
keeps,
practicing.
yeah. And I think that's kind of who I am. I'm a guy who just, you know, does that. One of my next books is going to be on my ease method.
Oh,
The
tell us.
Basically, the idea here is that when you want to set a goal for yourself, to say write a book or whatever, the ease method is to say, yeah, well, you could do one of two things. You could do a Tony Robbins firewalk peak state goal, like, yes, I'm going to do it, go, 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 and like, you know, try to get it done in an hour. You know, just put yourself in the peak state and just get it out, get it done. Or you could do, you know, a little bit at a time every day. And I think that when you do something every day, it becomes part of who you are. It becomes integrated in you as your identity.
Right.
So instead of just a guy writing a book, you become a writer.
Oh,
You know, instead of just a woman running a race, you become a runner. You know, you
right.
become that identity of who you are rather than just what you do. So with the ease method, it's the idea you can do something easy. So there's 4 levels: easy, acceptable, stretch, and extraordinary. So you can do something every day on one of those levels, but not nothing. You do something every day, because that way your brain goes, yes, I'm a writer, or yes, I am a runner, or yes, I'm a swimmer, or, you know, you do something every day. So you do the easy level or the acceptable level or the stretch level or the extraordinary level. So for me, I'm going to keep doing that. I'm a believer in that. So I'm going to use that method to write the ease book,
Oh,
and, you know, I'll keep running, and I'll keep working out, and I'll keep practicing the piano, and I'll keep doing things that I do, and see where the path leads me.
so are you going to do a course on the ease?
I have done once or twice, but I will continue doing more of them in the future. Yeah.
Right. And so how far along is your book coming now?
I'm still finishing up the User's Guide to Storytelling book. That's hasn't been published yet. So
Oh, and when is
first
that?
things first.
Right.
Well, the book designer's on vacation
Oh,
for a week,
great.
so it'll be at least 9 days before it's published, because that's when he comes back. But yeah, we're pretty close, awfully close to being done.
That's
So
fantastic.
yeah.
And that's going to be available through,
Well, certainly through Amazon and
right?
any other place like that. But yeah, I'm not sure exactly what other places it'll be published, but we'll see.
And you have done courses on storytelling.
I have,
Are
yes.
you going
I
to be
have
doing any more?
classes on storytelling.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
This is great because our listeners will probably want to tune in and find out when.
I will let people know. Yeah. At ericksonian.com, I always announce my courses and stuff, like, so
And
people can.
I'll definitely be posting all your contact information on the promo that goes out with the podcast and things. So I'm just wondering, you know, you just mentioned how you're going to, you know, stretch beyond those Well, could have been, but probably not, because I don't think you have any. Well, maybe you have one or two. I don't know. What called limiting beliefs. I doubt it. You keep moving forward in directions and taking yourself to new levels and always surpassing, right, your expectations in yourself. And that's why I find you so amazing to learn from and be with, and as a human being, because you're so integral, and the world needs more integral people, as well as, people who offer courses and people who have lived these things. It's not just like you've read a notebook and, throwing out information. You lived it, right? This is it.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And coming from you, that's really a great compliment. I really do appreciate what you said. Yeah, I try to do those things. Certainly, I must have some limiting beliefs. I know I do, but that's the thing about they're not always conscious.
Exactly.
But I think there's more layers of the onion that need to get peeled. And, I think it was Ram Dass who once said, if you think you're so enlightened, go spend a weekend with your mother.
Yeah. Dead or alive.
Right, exactly.
I mean, yeah, really, I've been able to really work through my mother stuff, and it's great now, because it's come to a place. She's been deceased, oh my goodness, 53 years. So yeah. And it was a fascinating journey, and still is. But I have a beautiful little altar that, has a picture of her and me. And and angel wings behind it, and a candle. And I talk to her every day, right? I talk to her, tell her how much I love her and how grateful I am for the gift of life. But years ago, there was no way. I was totally, at a place of resentment for her dying, and not just that, but for her giving me up in the first 6 years of my life, unbeknownst to me, of the real reasons why. But anyway, apart from that, I do spend time, but I wasn't able to before. And like Ram Dass says, right, go spend, and it does take that, because it's inclusion, acknowledgement, and not even just acceptance. It's I had to come to a place where I could really include her in my heart. And it's so beautiful, because it's so much ease and grace and no blockages, and the last place we want blockages is in our heart. So, so I'd be having to call you to come and while I'm on the table, and fly you into Canada, for a weekend while I'm on the surgeon's table. But yeah, it's true, right? We all have stuff, but that's the beauty of life. And when things come up, the beauty is we have experts in various areas, and those experts, such as yourself, where people can reach out and, have, hey, Doug, I have this situation, I have this problem, I have whatever, and they can reach out to you, and you can work with them, and they can move forward, right? And don't have to go into therapy for 10 years and relive the story over and over again, because you move it so quickly out of that story, right? So brilliant.
And it's, again, as you were saying before, one of the things about havening is that you have your hands with you. You can do it for yourself, and you don't have to. You can do it for yourself, but you also can make a phone call and get some help. The guy that won this tournament this weekend, the first person he hugged after his wife was his coach.
Mm-hmm.
He has a coach. He just won. He's like one of the best golfers in the world.
Right.
And he has a coach. Just saying.
Yep.
We all need
absolutely. I know a few golfers too that I have worked with in the past, and they're up there in terms of doing very well. And yeah, he still has a coach, and he's on the phone to him right after, if he's not on the golf course with him, but he has his wife and he has his coach. And yeah, we all support system, right? And the thing is to acknowledge and include the fact that you might need that.
Yeah.
That's the big part of it, right? Rather than not being able to humble yourself enough to go, you know what, I better check this out, and I better maybe look into it and getting some help for myself, like you did, like you said, what a blessing for your ex-girlfriend to how life brings us on a path, right? And she led you to, and then this, and then that, and now you're here. Like, amazing synchronicity. I love it. But you were willing and you were open to it, right? And that's the big thing, is to be open to it. So, oh, Doug, I'm just thrilled. I know you have to go, and I don't want to keep you any longer, but I do want to ask you to come back at some point, because
Sure.
I believe strongly, because I know there are people already interested in hearing this podcast. So I know once it's out and people comment, and they'll want more, because I do. So I just want to say I'm very humbled and honored, very touched, and I can't thank you enough. I truly love you, and I just am so grateful that you have come into my life. So have a wonderful, wonderful day, whatever you do, and I will send this to you, and we will talk again, Doug.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me. All that wonderful thing, all those wonderful things you just said to me are reflected back to you from me as well.
Oh,
so thanks
thank
for having me
you.
here.
Thank you so much. And just seriously have a wonderful day and enjoy summer.
Thanks. You too.
Okay. My love to your wife as well.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.